All right, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to the huddle today. Um, we've got several subjects to discuss, and today we're going to review, just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to go over. Uh, I think this is becoming more common, so we're going to talk about handling objections to commissions and listings. So we're going to go into some detail on that. We're going to talk about objection handling. We're also going to talk about personal property, how to handle those transactions properly. If time allows, we're also going to talk about our business plans. We are coming up on the middle of the year, so we're going to talk about reviewing those. But first off, we're going to kick it over to Dana Criddleball because we encountered a situation that I think we could all use some education on regarding buy downs. So take it away, Dana.
How's it going?
Good.
Okay, so I talked to Mike and another agent yesterday about a seller and buy downs and if they should lower their price or if they should offer a little bit more of a concession type of situation, just because rates have been going up and down and mostly up, it seems like lately. So to help out, I worked up some numbers just based on her scenario, but the percentage should be close to the same across on all scenarios. But if you're looking at offering like marketing a lower rate, we always can do the temporary buy downs, or you can look at a permanent buy down. So those are the two options you typically have. Temporaries have a bunch of different options on them, but the most common is 2-1, which means the first year your rate is 2% lower. So if the rate starts at 7, year 1, it will actually be 5. Year 2, it would be 6. And then on the third year, it would be 7. So it'd go back up to the regular rate by their third year. The cost of something like that is about 2.2% of whatever the purchase price is. So on the scenario that we were looking at, the purchase price was about $550. So it was going to cost a total of about $12,000. So that would be, and for that concession, any type of loan you can typically get that for. So conventional FHA, VA, like that's allowable no matter the down payment. You can also go higher, obviously, and then they could do permanent buy downs, or they could do a lower permanent buy down, I guess, than what the 2% would cover right now. On a 7%, like rates are about like the high 6% range right now. So if we did a permanent buy down, so if it's at 6.875 and we took that 2% and permanently bought it down, it would take it down to about 6.125. So it's, at the beginning of the 6s, which is a little bit better for people to see. If we go into the 5s, I mean, if they can give a 3% concession, we could get them a permanent rate in the higher 5s. So that's about where those numbers stand right now. But just depending on what your seller wants to do, instead of lowering it, a lot of times they'll lower like a bigger chunk, it seems like, from what I've noticed. But instead of lowering it that much, it can be better to offer a concession so that they can get the funds for the home at a lower rate, either permanently or temporarily.
Dana, so when you say go over the permanent, what are you saying that the permanent buy down is around 3% now?
No, I mean, I'm saying if you took that same 2.2% and just did it as a permanent buy down, so that's saying like buying
Oh, okay.
points,
Yeah.
then you would go from about a 6.875 today down to about a 6.125. So that would cost close to 2 points today. So it depends on the client. And, I would maybe offer it as a temporary buy down just to shock and wow for the 5%, maybe to start. But then if you ever want to have them talk to a lender, some people are way more into the fact of having like a fixed rate no matter what. Even though a temporary buy down is still technically a fixed rate, having that change each year can freak people out, from starting at 5, then going to 6, and then up to 7. Because by now we all thought we would be able to get out of those temporary buy downs. Nobody thought it would still be around right now. But so yeah, it just depends. If they're looking at permanent buy down, I can tell you all of my clients who are engineers, they're more into the permanent buy downs. They don't want to like have the risk of it changing. It depends on the client. If they're more excited about the temporary buy down and seeing a 5 at the beginning for the first year, or if they want that permanent buy down, we can go over both of them and the pros and cons of both.
Yeah, I think in the scenarios that we've run, and I think also when we're talking about this subject, um, if we're going to advertise this, I think in our listings, which I think you should, because there's a lot of talk about, should I reduce my price? Should I offer incentive? Um, obviously the answer is it depends. Maybe you should do both in some scenarios, but I think you should have a really good idea of the difference in payments that these buy downs will create, as opposed to just simply, hey, offering some dollar concession amount that may not make much difference in their payment in their in the long term. So make sure you do the math and have your esteemed loan officer, aka Dana, and I think Albino's on here too. Have them run those scenarios for you so you know exactly what those numbers are before you start offering them as incentive in your listing in your listing descriptions.
Can I just say too on that 550? So if we did a 550 and it was at 7%, the payment's about 3,650. If it started at 5% for year one, it's about 2,950. So there's like a $700 difference on a 2-1 buy down for the first year, and then it would be 350 less on the second year, and then it would go up to their full payment on that third year. So I can run the numbers. It's super easy to look at the numbers if you tell me the scenario, and then you guys can market it however you want in your listings. But it might be easy to show your sellers too, like, hey, look, if we offer this, here's the amount. Like, this payment might be easier to swallow for a buyer than just starting out with no concessions whatsoever. So I can give you those numbers to take to listings, or to take when you guys are talking about doing like a reduction or offering concessions or something like that. So you can go with a little bit more than just talking about it. It's easier to see it in writing.
Yeah, I love that plan. And I do think that, when people, houses are sitting on the market longer. I don't think for a long time, I wouldn't describe our days on market right now as a long time. I think that's pretty normal historically. The days on market is pretty normal right now. But people still get a little nervous about these scenarios. And I think advertising this out the gate that, hey, we're willing to offer you concessions on that is a way to invite offers that, a purchase price reduction doesn't do. I don't think it does that. Because I think people's concern are their payments and their financing, and to offer out the gate incentive to that, I think is probably likely better than just simply reducing the price. So yeah, keep that in mind and please do it. Anybody have any questions for Dana before we let her go? All righty. Thanks so much for your help, Dana. Moving on. This next section is going to require some audience participation. So we're definitely getting more listings in the door, and we're sort of reverting back to the perception that we need to, at least in my office, I think just looking at paperwork and talking to some agents, we're reverting back to the perception that now somehow the buyer's agent commission that we're offering in our agreements is more important than our listing commission. I'm seeing that play out. And we're going to talk about overcoming objections, and we're going to go into detail on that. But I just want to remind everybody that in this new world that we are operating with in regards to our commission agreements and how our new listing agreement expresses the amounts that we're offering as a buyer's agent commission, remember, we're negotiating first and foremost for our commission. That's our objective. And our commission is just that 3%. That's what we're negotiating for. So don't abandon that practice when you talk about what fees they're paying and what your commission is and all those things, because I feel like, do we need to offer a good incentive for buyer's agents? Yeah, we do. But remember, those things are negotiable. Okay. When we put it in writing in our listing agreements, whatever our fee is going to be, we've negotiated and it's over. But we're giving a buyer's agent an opportunity to negotiate a fee that's bigger than ours. I've always had a little bit of an issue with that. Like, we're allowing buyer's agents to negotiate fees that are higher than ours, even though that we're spending more money and we're in some cases spending more time on this particular listing, and we've negotiated a lower fee than we're willing to give to our buyers. So I know that's sort of a different perspective than we had in the past, but that's the new world we live in. So focus on your listing commission. All right, put in the chat or unmute yourself. What kind of objections are you getting to your listing percentage nowadays? And I also want to hear, we've been using this new language in our listing agreements for not quite a year, but coming up on a year. Has the new language and the new format helped you negotiate your listing side commission better? And how do you feel is the limited agency and the unrepresented buyer sections helpful as well? Put your perspective on those things in the chat. Has it made it easier for you to negotiate your own side? And those two extra sections, have they come in handy recently? Unmute yourself or put her in the chat, please, with any opinions would be helpful.
Mike, I had a comment.
Take it away.
I kind of half listened to what you were stating just before you opened up, I guess, the table to bring something to light. But I did want to mention that I have ran into multiple scenarios where I am representing the buyer on a listing that's, another agent's listing, and I'm negotiating a full 3% buyer broker compensation.
Mm-hmm.
And the listing agent almost gets frustrated that I am pushing and negotiating for that full 3% because they are so willingly wanting to tell me that they have taken the listing for a 1% or 1.5%. And so they're only offering a 2%. And each time I have gotten it up to either a 2.5% or a full 3%, regardless of the information they share with me, I just find it very interesting that they are so willing to tell me that they have discounted their side on the list.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Sandy. That is not the first time I've heard something similar. Think of what Sandy is saying here. And it sort of goes right along with what I said. But from the perspective of, hey, we're getting a full fee as a buyer's agent, they're a little offended by it. That's probably what is motivating them to give you that information. Hey, guess what, Sandy? I know you're giving me an offer, which we so desperately need, but you should know that I have severely discounted my fee. So maybe you should too. Like, it's just manipulative behavior is what it is. And maybe if you're doing transactions for 1%, you should be you should feel a little bashful. Well, let me pull that back. If you're bad at your job, you shouldn't feel bashful about taking 1%. If you're good at your job, you should feel a little bashful about taking 1%. Yeah, I think, by the way, when market forces determine that, buyer's agents' fees may go down because of certain market conditions, the agents that continually push back and continually push for that 3% on their side get it all the time, significantly more often than not. So just remember that, like, this is your negotiations will go as well as you stand up for yourself. Linda says, I think it is helpful, super easy to explain to the seller exactly what you will be doing, show your value. Really great comment, Linda, which, Natalie says, it's been easier for me to negotiate a full listing commission. I almost always get a full 3% with the new language. Limited and unrepresented are a smoother conversation as well. The part that I love, that we can use the buyer's agent commission as negotiable. I think, Natalie, that is the perspective that we wrote that agreement in that the focus is on what we are charging them to list the property and giving the seller the ability to choose the amount they're offering the buyer's agent. and to negotiate it in the offer. Yeah, we didn't used to do it that way, but that's the way we do it now. That's the exact perspective we want everybody to have. And so, and I could be wrong, but the paperwork the last 2 months seems to be telling a slightly different story in that we're worried about buyer's agent and commissions, which we should have some concern with that subject. We should address it with the seller. But remember, we're charging a 3% fee to list their property. And they can choose based on the offer what they offer the buyer's agent. That's a negotiation. That's separate from what we're doing here. You're negotiating your buyer's fee. That's how it works now with us. Okay. Let's go back to Linda's comment. Show your value. I think you know when it. By the way, let kind of put it in the chat. What percentage of your listings are you doing a full-fledged listing presentation on? Out of curiosity, because I know that there's some times where, you know, some people are just ready to go. You know, you've been referred or you've done business in the past and you've already established some level of trust, and they're like, hey, what do you charge? Well, I charge, 3%, blah, blah, blah. Great, let's get going. So it doesn't happen all the time. Sandy says she does it every single time. Natalie does it 95% of the time. And Linda issues a stern warning. It better be all the time, says Linda. Getting a little dark, Linda. Yeah, I think we should be doing that every time. And I think for the most part, that's just how it is.
Hey, Mike, what was that question? I missed it. I had to answer a phone call real quick.
Yeah, my question was, what percentage of the time are you doing a full-fledged listing presentation? Sitting down, telling about all your marketing, telling them about the process, what to look out for, what to expect, and then saying, this is why I charge this much. You're muted, Scott, by the way, if you were talking to me. Linda says prevents issues down the line. Yeah, I think, that's part of it. I mean, the listing presentation definitely prevents issues down the line. It sets expectations for you. But without our listing presentation and to talk about commissions in the dark, it's not very easy, is it? To just tell someone, hey, I charge what I charge and that's it. Well, why? Well, we got to sit down and talk about it is the way you handle that. Let me ask something of all you veterans out there. How many listings, because I want to give people some perspective. I'm going to ask several questions here. So how many people here will push back more than once when someone asks you to reduce your commission? So the conversation would go something like this. Hey, will you do it for X percentage? No, I'm not willing to do that. Well, someone else will do it for X percentage. And now they're essentially baiting you either accept or push back again. How many people have done that more than, say, 2 or 3 times in their lives? Are you pushing back enough, I think is my question. Natalie says yes. I totally believe you, Natalie, that you are doing that. It's not easy to do. When you first start doing that and pushing back when people ask for those discounts, at first you're going to feel some way about it. But after you do it for a while, after you need to summon all the conflict and all the work that you've done in the past and know that, no, I can't do it for less because this is a really hard job. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to have a lot of stress. And no, I can't do it for less. It's stressful enough when you pay me what I am asking for. Scott says, the capital worst clients always ask for a discount. I don't know if there's causation there, but there is strong correlation, Scott, between
100% correlation from my experience. It's just not worth it.
Yeah. If Chris says time for the pullback, sounds like you have a great real estate agent. Why not use them? Natalie says, I always say if we give our commission away up front, there is no way I can help if we get in a bind. I've been known to help with repairs and other things to save a deal. Yeah, that's a great perspective. I mean, like the feeling is completely different. Let's say you're netting the same amount, but you help, like you used it to solve or overcome an issue. Like, how many times does maybe an HVAC unit that costs $15,000 or $18,000 need to be repaired, and they don't have the money? They can't get the deal done. They won't be able to sell their house, but you've thrown a few bucks from your commission, and you do some stopgap there, and the deal closes. That's a significantly different feeling than just taking it on the chin before you even start the process. This is Chris. Chris is referencing the pullback. This is sort of a joke thing that some old school guys taught me way back in 2006. Whenever anybody, I don't think this is a real thing. It's funny. I don't know if it's real, so don't quote me and don't pretend like this is a sales tactic, because it's a little schmarmy, okay? But it goes like this. When someone says, hey, or you offer somebody, say, hey, do you want this donut for $5? And someone says, I don't know, and they hesitate. You immediately go, oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to sell it to somebody else real quick. And then that creates some desire, like, no, don't give it away. I want my opportunity here. That's the pullback. That's the pullback. Actually, Chris says it worked the other day. I actually think in some scenarios it does work. And
Hey, it worked for me on a loan with a client who was wishy-washy, and he just kept going back and forth for like 5 days. Well, my friend, my buddy, he does loans, and my buddy this. I'm like, talk to you on Saturday. I got your pre-qual. We did all the things. You can go with your buddy, but I can't keep talking to you every day. Like, sometimes it's like you have to push people a little bit to make a decision. And then I feel like also sometimes when you stand your ground a little bit, they're like, oh, I kind of respect this person. Maybe I should stop going back and forth and just get moving forward. And he literally was like, no, I'm going to go with you. I'm like, okay, then let's get this going.
Yep. I mean, I think there's something to it, and I think there's a way to do it, like standing up for yourself 100% of the time. We should have plenty of customer service and all those things, but part of negotiating your commission is standing up for yourself. And I will say this, in my career, I was sort of grew up in this field with a lot of, tough guy, old timer types. But the one thing that I took away that I still use today from their strategy is when people ask them to reduce their commission, they go, no, I don't do that. And that was it. The conversation was almost always over. And there were some people who would go, well, and they try to continue that conversation, but they wouldn't engage. They would just say, no, this is what I charge. And quite frankly, you can deliver that line and it works, right? Because you already know how hard this job is. You know what you charge, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to overcome objections at all times. Going back to what Chris said, the one strategy, because we all know that there are a lot of agents who will discount. They'll offer their services for next to nothing. There's entire brokerages that have been around for decades whose sole purpose is to put listings on the MLS for $99, that type of thing. Those have been around and will be around forever. And kind of going along with what Chris said, if someone says, hey, will you do it for cheap? And if they're really pushing, say, hey, listen, it sounds like you want really discounted services. If you want some discounted services, I can recommend you to a company that'll list this for $99, right? Paint, stark contrast when they push you hard enough. Like, hey, listen, sounds like you don't want full service. You want the cheapest you can get. You want the dollar store version of a real estate agent. I've got a company that you can sign up for. I don't think you'll actually be able to talk to somebody, but you can sign up online and get your house going. The vast majority of the people will not choose that. They're going to choose another strategy. All right, moving on. Next question. To give everybody here perspective, how many times have you lost a listing because you wouldn't discount enough? And I would like everybody's response to that, even if it's a 0 or a 2. Scott, 0. Thank you, Scott. Linda, Natalie, Sandy, Lisa, Kimmy, Ron. Kimmy, 0. Chris says 1 for sure. She was not nice. Sorry to hear that she was mean to you, Chris. Lisa, none. 0. I don't think I ever have because of commission. All right, 2 more responses. Go ahead.
Mike, I take it back. I did have one, and it was last fall. I met a couple through a Facebook real estate page, and I sent them very specific listings in their price range, which was very high, 2 to 3 million up in Park City. And when I went and met them and I had 4 showings scheduled, this guy said, you know, he knew everything. He's like, listen, I have a real problem with you making $100,000 to open some doors for me. I'm willing to pay you about 25,000. He just wanted a showing agent. This is how we do it in New Hampshire, and I have lawyers who handle all this for me. I didn't even argue with this one. I knew his mind was made up, and he was certain he knew more than me. And I'm like, in that case, I'm happy to call the listing agents and tell them you're coming alone, because I won't be coming with you. And that's what happened. And the 4 listing agents, and I know all of them, drilled this guy. Like, you're not getting a discount by writing the offer yourself. It's not going to happen.
So true.
And one of the top producers up here said, I will unlock a door for you. You will not get a discount. I will not remind you of deadlines. I would suggest you get a realtor.
Look at Scott and his standards. Yeah, I think those types do come around from time to time. And they're always like, well, I do it this way and it's the only right way. Sandy says only 1 from a builder because he wanted me to do it for 1%, since that's what the other agent he had worked for years did it for. Didn't give me an opportunity to ever present what I do and how I offer full service. I mean, that sort of counts, Sandy, but almost barely. Trisha Nichols says, I had sellers use me for a market analysis and listed sales. So yes, technically because of commission. So I think the perspective here is between everybody who answered the questions, there's probably a few hundred listings that have occurred if you combined all the listings these agents have ever done. And they're saying either 0 or 1 or 2 times it's happened. They've lost the listing because of you wouldn't reduce your price enough. Like, I think it's not surprising that it's going to happen, but the perspective is it doesn't happen that often. Also, keep in perspective. Well, let me ask the audience this question: how many people who list their homes interview more than 1 agent? What percentage? Or let me phrase it differently, but asking for the same math. How many sellers only interview 1 agent? What percentage of sellers only interview 1 agent? Let me see Scott's photo there. Oh, I love that. Scott says 65%. That's a pretty good guess, Scott. It's actually higher than that. The percentage is around 70% of sellers only interview 1 agent. So if you're getting interviewed, know that they probably don't have a whole bunch of people lined up. They've heard of other agents, but trust and competence are the things that matter most to them. So if they trust you and they believe you're competent, they're probably going to hire you. Let's see, Scott's some expertise, much expertise, I like that graph, Scott. I'm going to save that. I'm going to use it in some material somewhere down the line.
You should. For every FISBO.
I love the start of it. No expertise, much confidence. Yeah. And as soon as you learn a little bit, yeah, there's a lot of subjects where I know what I don't know and I want to be, somewhere else. There's a lot of subjects like that for me. Yeah. So 70% of sellers only interview 1 agent, which means you have a great shot at it. The other perspective I want you to have: if someone asks you for a discount, what's probably going on in their head? Meaning, have they decided to hire you? Are they just still considering whether or not they should hire you? I mean, all sorts of things they could be thinking about all sorts of things. In my opinion, if someone asks for a discount, the first thing that you should think of is, oh, sounds like they're ready to hire me. Because they're like, who offers the discount and you go, okay, I'll accept. Well, I haven't made my decision yet. Kind of a weird exchange, right? They've made up their minds consciously or subconsciously that you're the person. And I think you should take it and run. Not to mention, if somebody says, well, you do it for less, you know, we're going to have our objections. But even if you accept, are there any other terms we're talking about? If I accept now, like, you should ask them, if I accepted the discount, does that mean you're hiring me right now? Like, you know, circle these objectives, handle them individually, and move on. Also, couple of last things. If we are building a referral business, and we make habits of giving our friends and our good buddies discounts every time we do real estate for them, do you think that will trickle down to all the referrals that they're helping generate for you? It absolutely will. I can't tell you how many times over the last maybe 15 years, and maybe that I've watched real estate Facebook groups and the topic of commissions come up. And there's one agent that I know that does a lot of transactions. And the question posed to the group, this was several years ago, the question posed to the group in this real estate Facebook group was, how many of your clients are asking for discounts? And the people who answered, and their answers of the people who I knew and were familiar with, was just spot on. And this agent who does a ton of transactions, his response was, every single one of them. Happens all the time. And I hope he wasn't wondering why that was happening. Everybody knew, who read that comment, why that was happening. Well, you advertise that you're cheaper than everybody else. You advertise discounts. That's what you lead with. You're telling the whole world, hey, listen, I'm an amazing agent, but I do it for less. And, you know, this person is doing it their way, kind of out doing, you know, some marketing campaign. So lots of people are going to see it. But he's advertising the discount and he's still going, yeah, they all ask for discounts. Whereas I know plenty of agents who do their interviews, and many of you here will experience the same thing. Very few of them are asking for discounts. So, be aware that those things can trickle down and cause you problems in the future. So, all right, anybody want to cover any more? Does anybody have any questions? Is anybody struggling with overcoming objections on getting your listing percentages where you need them to be, where we want them to be, so you can make more money? Any other questions or comments? All right, let's move on. This has come up several times lately, and let's discuss and review disclosure of personal interest. And if you're, and we cover this a lot, but we always have to keep covering it because, you know, we're real estate agents. And so a lot of us own real estate and we deal with our own real estate and we're looking for our own real estate all the time. So let's cover it. Everybody knows that if you list a property, all of your marketing material, so if you're the owner of the property, all of your marketing material has to have the disclosure on it, right? So signage, every flyer that's printed, and then everything online. So by the way, when we do online stuff and we do MLS listings, in the agent, not in the public comments, you need to disclose that you're an owner agent. I think we're all doing pretty good with that. Also, you can respond if somebody gives you an offer. One, before they even present that offer, they should be aware through your marketing that you are the owner agent. And if they haven't discovered that, they're either not paying attention or you haven't done a good enough job of disclosing. So think about that. But two, your offer must contain that disclosure as well. So there's two ways you can do it. You can just simply disclose with a single line or two. But as, you can just say, seller is a licensed real estate agent or a real estate associate broker, or real estate broker in the state of Utah. But true to form, that wasn't a pun. I'm going to show you the form that they've created because, you know, they want you to use forms all the time. This is the form they want you to use. And as you would suspect, it's the disclosure of interest form. And you're going to check that box where either the buyer or the seller or a relative of a real estate broker or sales agent participating in this transaction. Or you could check the box, a real estate broker or sales agent licensed as such under the laws of Utah who may share in the brokerage fee paid for in this transaction. So, you know, even if you're receiving a referral fee or if you have any interest in this property, I think, and as all things go with disclosure, if you're talking about a third cousin who, yeah, you're related, but you're more friends than, you know, family, yeah, just disclose it just to be on the safe side. By the way, pop quiz, and you'd be surprised how many times this come up. If you own a property, or let's say you own 1% of an LLC that is selling their property, can you enter into limited agency? Yes or no in the chat, please. Scott says no. Ron says no. Natalie says no. I think the 3 no's have it. Absolutely not. You cannot enter into limited agency. And by the way, even if you are, even if you're helping, let's say you're helping your sister sell her home. Should you be entering into limited agency with your sister as a seller? Yeah, let's go with a hard no on this one too. Hard no on this one too. We do have, there's serious conflict of interest there to enter into limited agency in that scenario. So yeah, let's not pass go on that one. Do not enter into limited agency if you're using the disclosure of interest addendum at all. Let's just avoid that scenario altogether. This has come up in the past. Let's talk about this scenario. There's a lot of you who do land deals and a lot of you who want to invest in real estate. I have had a scenario in which, and the agent handled this perfectly, by the way. The agent entered into a limited agency with, well, I'll address that in a second, Scott. I had an agent who listed a property. Well, he didn't even list it. He knew the seller and knew the seller wanted to sell this piece of land. And so he went out and found a buyer for it and entered into a limited agency situation. And the buyer and the seller were very experienced real estate people who knew exactly what they wanted and had done multiple transactions in the past. And about a month into the transaction, the buyer approaches our agent and says, "Hey, would you be interested in partnering on this after I close? You know, maybe contributing some money to put in some improvements, some utilities, that type of thing." And the agent had been searching for a project to invest in for quite some time and had some money to do it. And so he was like, "I don't know. Let me figure out if there's a legal way that I can disclose all this and do it." What do you think our answer was to this scenario? What do you think we told our agent? So he was limited. He wasn't going to invest until after the transaction closed. Is this something we should do or not do? You know, it's the answer is simple, but the situation is complicated. The bottom line is, we told our agent that that's not something that he should do. They should do. I'm not revealing the gender of this person, even though I did. Yeah, it's a conflict of interest. It really is. There's just no way to escape the fact that your perception of this transaction and the future negotiations that may occur are potentially tainted in this scenario, right? Like you can't escape that you've already, become this limited person. And by agreeing to invest in the future, you're no longer, you're really no longer impartial in the ways that you should be. And so the agent said, okay, all right, I won't do any of that in the future. And because if things go bad in the future, it's going to be a big problem, and the brokerage will get sued, and so will the agent, and it will not end well. Scott says owner agents are not bound by clear cooperation. You know, Scott, you can wax on this one. This is the first I'm hearing it, though. I don't know. You know though.
Yeah, I found out from the MLS actually, if you own a house, you can, and it's coming in a month, you can blast it out right now.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I guess it sort of makes sense, you know, because you're not going to be a limited agent, so you're not trying. The only people you're manipulating is yourself, I guess. Okay. All right, that kind of makes sense. Kimmy says, with disclosure of interest, would unrepresented be a no-no as well? No. I think what you're asking is, can there be an unrepresented buyer if you are putting a disclosure of interest in a contract? Yeah. Yeah, you don't owe any fiduciary duty to an unrepresented buyer. So yeah, feel free to do that transaction all day long, though, you know, talking about the perils of handling an unrepresented buyer, we've discussed that many times, and yeah, there can be some conflict there, and you got to watch yourself, mind your P's and Q's, but yeah, you can absolutely have unrepresented buyers and still do the disclosure of interest addendum. Okay. Anybody have any other comments on disclosure when it comes to personal transactions or even relations of the personal transactions? Oh, the other thing, there was one more thing on this. Agents, and this is something I probably could have guessed at, but didn't actually have seen it or heard it. Maybe I did and I forgot. Agents selling their own property must not handle earnest money directly. All funds must go through third-party trust accounts, usually the brokerage or title company. So many of you are aware that if if we represent a seller, a buyer has the ability to deposit their earnest money with our brokerage. So someone we don't represent can deposit earnest money with our brokerage. But if you are an owner agent, let's avoid that scenario. Not that that's very common, but just, you know, it's there. All right, moving on. Let's see. All right, let's, this is a bit of a coaching thing. Let's talk about, I'm going to put this in the chat. Put this document in the chat. This is a really easy document to talk about, and we're going to talk about doing a review, a follow-up on your business plan. Oh man, come on. Don't do that to me. All right, there you go. The reason we're going to talk about this for the next 5 or 6 minutes or so, by the way, if you want, this is a really good time of year because, you know, we just finished our 5th month of the year, and we are writing our business plans at the first of the year. We're making commitments to ourselves. We're talking about where we want to be. Now is a really good time to reassess where we're at. So let's, I had to close that document. Let's open it up real quick and review it while we're doing this. All right, everybody see that? You know, I think when you do this, I think you should have your business plan out already and review the things that you have committed to in the past. And talk about your why. Maybe your why has changed. Maybe your, you know, this is when we talk about why in real estate, is it beyond money? Definitely can be, doesn't have to be. But you know, money does facilitate some of the most important things in our life. So review your why. Why are we doing this? Is it still the same? If it's not, maybe your goals have changed. Maybe the things that you need to align yourself with in your daily activities have changed as well. But you definitely, this to me, is the most important part. This part two, business plan self-assessment. When was the last time you read your business plan? For some of you, it may be when you open up your business plan to talk about the assessment, your business plan assessment, your mid-year assessment. I think you should be reading your business plan frequently. It should be maybe something that's hanging up on a wall. Maybe it should be, on your phone where you have easy access to it. And part of your weekly routine is to review your business plan to make sure that your schedule, your weekly schedule, aligns with your business plan. I can't tell you how many times I found myself when I was actively selling doing things that had nothing to do with my business plan. It was like I was just like this stray cat out there that was just always wandering around, and I'd look at my business plan and go, oh yeah, that's right, I totally committed to that multiple times. Ask yourself this: what part of your plan is no longer relevant or missing entirely? It's sort of like writing a big paper, and your first draft, you think you did a great job, but by the time you do your second draft, you realize the first draft was pretty bad. That could easily be your business plan. So is there something missing? Is there something that's no longer relevant? This is a good review. What are one or two tactics from your plan that are actually producing your results? This is a good time to review your transactions and review, where did this lead come from? How did I get this lead? Are you seeing a pattern there? Is there something, I'm doing an open house every single week and this is where my leads are coming from. This may be a good opportunity for you to realize that I can refocus my efforts onto the things that are producing the most results. This is me. Which daily or weekly activities have drifted off course from your plan? That's probably my most important question. What must your plan include to make this quarter your best quarter? It may be simply a recommitment to the things that matter most, the things that you've already committed to. That could be the things that are producing the best result. And then here, take some stats. This part is to kind of review quarterly transaction goal. What was it in the past, and is it still the same, and have you achieved it? Write down your top 3 lead sources. This is really important activity to do. Always identify your top 3 lead sources. Even if one isn't producing results, but you are committed to it, write it down. I do think all of us should have some daily contact goal, if not a weekly contact goal. Maybe we don't prospect every single day, but we do prospect 2 or 3 days a week heavily. Whatever works for you, make sure that those goals are visible. Share and commit. This is, some of us are really internal with our business plan and we don't share it with anyone. But I have found when I do share my commitments and my goals with other people, that I do stick with them better. So consider that. And by the way, I preach this mantra all the time. I think I do it because the things that work best for me in the past is to reduce our business plan to a single page that we can see. There's a little pin note: keep this sheet visible on your desk or workspace as a reminder. A single page is a really great reminder to help you stay focused. So do your best to reduce your business plan to one page. It doesn't have to be one page, but make a one-page version of your business plan to help you stay focused and on track. And does anybody have any questions or comments or anything they'd like to add to a quarterly business plan reset? Yeah, let's stop sharing. All right, y'all. It is 1:53, and that is all the info I have for you, unless anybody has some issues they'd like to cover or talk about. All right, I'm calling it a day. Thanks so much for coming to Huddle, and we'll see you next week.